These little origami style folded bags are so quick and easy to make. You only need 2 squares of fabric and a couple of pieces of ribbon. Now this little bag I've made with 2 squares of 21-inch square fabric and 2 lengths of ribbon that are about 25 inches long. I'm going to show you how to make the smaller bag, for which I use 17-inch squares of fabric, and I've got about 20 inches of ribbon on that one. Oh, and on this one I've put a little bit of hot applique on the front as well, so it makes it a little bit more unusual. I think they're really useful, both for gift bags and jewellery, and maybe keeping lingerie if you're going away for a weekend, and they're so incredibly quick. I think you can make one in about half an hour. So this is where we start. So 2 squares of cotton fabric. Mine measures 17 inches square. You could make these any size you like. I'm going to use the flowery fabric on the outside of my bag and then the spotty fabric on the inside of my bag. First thing I'm going to do though, I'm just going to put a little heart embellishment in one of the corners of the flaps. So I've cut out a heart shape in the same fabric as the lining, and that's just going to sit quite close to the edge here. I'll sew that on in a second. The only other thing that I need are 2 pieces of coordinating ribbon that are about 20 inches long, and those are for the drawstring, so those go on last. So first thing I'm going to do is to applique my little heart. So I'm going to use a satin stitch on my machine, which is a zigzag stitch but very close together. Just pin that in the centre to hold it in place. Then I'm just going to stitch all the way around the edge, and this should really make the heart stand out. Alfie agrees. A little tip, I did put some spray starch on the back of the heart and onto the fabric, just to give it a little bit more oomph, if you like. So careful around the corners, or around the curves I should say. So I'll fold the fabric out of the way. Just keep easing that round a little bit. So I could press that if it needs it, but I think that's going to be okay. Just trim away my excess threads. There. The next thing to do is to go back to a straight stitch on your machine, and I'm going to sew all the way around both squares of fabric, but leave a gap in the middle of one of the sides so that I can turn them the right way out. Always leave your gap in the centre or on one side rather than in the corner, because it's easier to make that neat when you turn it the right way around than trying to make a corner neat. So I'm just going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is the size or the distance between my needle and the side of my foot. Back stitch a few times to get started, and that will help stop your stitches coming undone. And then when you come into the corner, just make sure the needle's in the down position so that you can pivot around the corner without losing your place. Just before I turn it the right way round, I'm just going to snip across the corners. Careful not to cut into the stitches, but this means that when you turn the fabric the other way around, the points are a little bit sharper. Oh, come on. There. So through the hole that I left, push out those corners. And then I'm going to top stitch all the way around. And I'd normally iron at this point, but because I haven't got the iron on, then the stitching will be sufficient. And don't worry about sewing over the hole that you've left to close it, because when I top stitch all the way around, I'll top stitch across the top of there, so it'll close it up. And I need to remember that this is the front part of my bag, or the front flap, because that's the part with the heart on it that I made. Just need to push out the corners a little. If you've got your bone folder, then this would be an ideal tool, but I've lost mine, so I'm going to use a pen, or a blunt pencil would be fine. There. So a nice neat top stitch, about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of my fabric, will give it a bit of sturdiness and keep the fabric in place and make it look nice and neat as well. So again, I'm just going to stitch all the way around as carefully as I can. So I've top stitched all the way around, that's held it nice and flat. I could press again if I wanted to. Just want to make note of where my heart is, because that's going to be on the flap over the front of the bag, so I need to bear that in mind. Flip this over, and then I need to find the central point of the bag. So if I just finger crease that in the middle in one direction, and then do the same in the opposite direction, I'll have a little cross right in the centre, so I know where the middle of my bag is. What I need to do then is to fold over the sides, and I need to overlap by about 1.5 inches from the end there. Yes, I do, Alfie. And then do the same in the opposite direction, making sure that they're on the parallel lines, and that overlap needs to be exactly the same. The way to check it is to fold over the top and the bottom like so, and everything should fit nicely into those squares, so it looks like a big envelope. Okay? But this is going to be the base of my bag, so I'm just going to pop a couple of pins in away from the centre, because I'm going to draw a line over those just to hold those folds in place, and then I'm going to draw a chalk line straight down the centre, and I'm going to sew just either side. So I like to use my rectangular ruler, because I know that using the grids on here will keep everything square. And I'm going to use chalk so I can brush it away afterwards and draw a line straight down the centre. You should be able to see that, I think, just about. And then I'll need another one, 1/2 inch to one side of that centre line, and the second line 1/2 inch to the other side of that centre line. This is going to help to form a base to the bag. So ignore the centre line now. I've got a 1-inch strip, and I need to sew down both sides of that strip. And the second one. Snip away those threads. Take out my pins. Right, that's most of my bag done. I need to fold over the two right sides together, and I'm just going to sew down the sides of the bag. You only need a small seam allowance, so about 1/4 inch will be fine. And the same down the other side, matching up the two corners there. Then I'm going to make a bag base by opening up the side and the base of the bag. I just want to make sure that my pocket's opened as well. If I show you on the inside, there's a pocket on the front and on the back, so I need to open up the pockets and open up the seam and then squish that together, and I'll sew across at about an inch down, and that's in between those two lines that I've already sewn to make the base. And the same on the other side, so just making sure those pockets are open, side seam to the base, and sew across at about an inch. And then I'll just turn my bag the right way around. Push out those corners where I just made the base, as you can see there. And this is how we're looking. So, next thing to do is to fold over the two flaps, top and bottom. You will see a little bit of the lining fabric coming through now, that's fine. And then I'm going to sew at about ½ an inch all the way around, and that'll leave open two little channels either side to pop my ribbon through. So I'm going to take off the accessory compartment on the sewing machine for this. I don't need to pin this first. Keep that nice and flat. And start to sew. All the way across. And then onto my front side. Hello. I'm back to where I started. Cut those threads nice and neat. Now I'm going to put the ribbon through, so take one length of the ribbon and pop a safety pin on the end. And I'm going to thread this through the channel all the way around in one direction, and then the second ribbon I'm going to thread in the opposite direction, so that when you pull them from either side it all draws up. Up there. And back through. Now I'm just going to tie mine in a knot. If you wanted to make that really neat, you could sew across the top of that on your sewing machine and then make the ends disappear inside the tube. But I'm just going to knot that for now. And don't worry if the ribbon's a little bit too long, you can always cut that down afterwards. Or you could make your ribbon even longer so that you can hang it up. That's one side. Then do the same with the next piece of ribbon, but you'll take this through the same channel but in the opposite direction. Oh, okay, the opposite direction. It's a little bit tighter now because I've got the first ribbon going through there already, but it will go through. Or you could use a piece of cord if you didn't want to use ribbon. Or if you're making this little bag with a burlap or a linen, then a piece of string would work well as well. So it'd look good in all natural fibres. I might have a go at that. So just again, feed that safety pin through. There we go, just knot the second side. Little bead on the end of the ribbon might look quite nice, or you could embellish the bag with bows and more ribbon trim. I'm just going to cut the very end off that fabric where it's not too neat on the end of my knot. Make sure they're nice and tight so they don't come undone. And there's my little drawstring patch.